Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So today is the third part of my exploration into what ChatGPT had to say about confidence. And this has been really interesting because I think as I've explored this, I've got even more clarity myself about, just the whole concept of confidence and what it is. But also it's great because this ChatGPT really is an amalgamation, I suppose, of what the thoughts are out there about confidence. You know, it's getting its information from what human beings think about confidence. So it's been really interesting to explore it. So this is part 3. So I've got a couple of little sections of things that the last little bit of the definition that ChatGPT created, and if you want you can go back and watch the previous episodes. If you can't find the links to those, do reach out to me and I'll share them with you. So the last two little parts. So firstly, this bit, confidence can also be fragile and subject to fluctuations, especially in situations where there is uncertainty, ambiguity or high stakes. So that's what ChatGPT said. So the illusion of confidence does make it look like confidence is fragile and subject to fluctuations. But really, because what we're talking about, again, it's this idea that confidence is a thing. I think that is the real problem. What even are we talking about when we say confidence? Well, I think what we're talking about is us doing things without that nagging voice in our head stopping us, or the feelings that come from that activation of our conditioning. So it's when we say we feel confident, all that's really happening is we're doing things. And we call that feeling confidence, but I would say that that feeling is probably just calm. It's probably just presence. It's probably just a human form doing things, which is what human forms are supposed to do. That's our natural thing, really, is to be doing things. And there is a reason for that, historically, ancestrally, way back. Well, if we didn't do things, we would die. Like if we didn't get out of bed in the morning and light the fire in the cave and go out and find some food, we would die. If we didn't defend ourselves against those who, well, the animals, I suppose, in the main, or the other tribes who wanted to do away with us, we would die. And I guess before human beings became so into their thinking, there was just human forms doing things. And the place where we can still see that in our current life, in this very strange life that we lead, it is within, is with children, where we see very small children just doing things without anything on it or anything on their minds. So the issue really is that we've got a thing called confidence that we've created as a word to describe us doing things without anything on our minds, because that's what it is, isn't it? Like, it's just you doing something and having a nice feeling while you're doing it. So we then say that thing is fragile and subject to fluctuations, And people start to notice that in themselves. They start to notice, oh, sometimes I can do things and sometimes I can't do things. So it looks like confidence is fragile. Fragile. What an awful word to use. Now, bearing in mind we've all just got quite enough on our plates right now, I'm not sure we need to be carrying around the burden of the idea that confidence is fragile and subject to fluctuations. Because then we're in this place of, well, our confidence might plummet any moment. We decide we want to do something, like let's say we decide we're going to speak at an event, and then we're in this place of thinking, well, what if my fragile confidence doesn't turn up or fluctuates on that day and I can't do the thing? Well, that's horrendous, isn't it? The whole idea of that is awful, when in actual fact you can do literally anything all the time, as long as you're not listening to the thoughts that say you can't. So much different to what we're being told. So the other part of that is that, that it's especially fragile and subject to fluctuations when there is uncertainty, ambiguity, and high stakes. Well, all of those things, uncertainty, ambiguity, and high stakes, are thought created. They're part of the problem. They're part of the self-doubting thoughts. They feed the self-doubting thoughts. Oh, I'm uncertain about something. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, you don't. You're not supposed to. If that's helpful. And so then the self-doubting thoughts get more fuel, don't they? Ambiguity, high stakes, the same thing. Something's got high stakes. What? Nothing's really got that high stakes in our lives right now. It's high stakes if you're fighting a saber-toothed tiger and you might die. Like, that's high stakes for your physical body. But egoically, that's where we're talking about, aren't we? When we're talking about uncertainty, ambiguity, and high stakes, we're talking about to the ego, to the self, to the, oh, what are people going to think about me? But it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about. The capability to do things is there all the time. The illusion is created when we believe the thinking that says we can't, for whatever reason, whether it's because we're believing our self-doubting personal thinking that's come from our conditioning, or whether we're creating an idea of uncertainty, ambiguity, or high stakes. It's all the same thing. It's all thought covering over the truth of who you are. And the truth is that you are made to do things. You're a doer. Now, I don't mean that to the point where you're burning yourself out doing too much, but you are meant to do things. As I say, you wouldn't have survived if you didn't. So the last little bit says, therefore, it is essential to cultivate a healthy and realistic sense of confidence that is grounded in self-awareness, self-care, and continuous learning and growth. And piffle is actually the word that comes to mind when I see that. Self-awareness is the only thing. Awareness, actually, not sure about that. Oh, because we are awareness. And we're not the self. So it is awareness of the self. I prefer to swap those words around, really. Awareness of the self. And the self is this created illusion that is the thoughts, the ideas, the beliefs, the nonsense that we've learned from when we were very small, probably from the moment of conception, if not before. Because we're picking stuff up from our environment, from our heritage, from the people who came before us, from our ancestors. I'm just not sure what self-care's got to do with it, really. It sounds like something else to do. I'm not saying don't look after yourself, but what's self-care got to do with your ability to do things? And continuous learning and growth. As you know, I'm not a big fan of continuous learning and growth. Not in the way it's being sold to us right now, where if you don't do it, you're not going to be okay. You've got to work on your confidence. You've got to, deal with it. You've got to sort it out. You've got to do the self-care and have it all routined and ritualized. I'm never pointing in that direction. It's really simple, this confidence malarkey. You're a doer. You're capable of doing all sorts of things. There are many, many things in your life that you are capable of doing. And you're only not doing them because you're believing the self-doubting thinking that says you can't. That's it. The idea that there is anything to do with continuous learning and growth in order to just have that formula clear to us sounds like a nightmare these days to me. And trust me, it didn't used to. If somebody had tried to present this to me, in fact, they did twice before I actually was ready to hear it. I had a lady yesterday who said, I find it really difficult not to see that these thoughts are my thoughts. That's really hard. And I was like, I know, it is hard. That she said to not see that that's who she is. That noise in your head isn't you. It isn't you. It's just been there such a long time. And because it developed in such a gradual way, I mean, who knows the first time there's a thought, and I mean, it must be when children are very young, because children do things, don't they, that show that they're feeling and they're thinking and then they're acting in a particular way. So it's there from such an early age, and it's developing all the time, especially when we're young, and we don't know that's happening. There's not a you doing a learning thing like when you learnt 2 + 2 = 4, etc. It's not like that. It's just happening. It's just being picked up from our environment. And it's still happening now. I'm 52 and it's still happening. But what I see now is that the more we look in this direction, we start to unlearn, like continuous learning, continuous unlearning, I think, really. And as well, what I love about it, a lot of what Claire Diamond says, is there's this kind of providing ourselves with those experiences that we didn't have when we were younger. So providing ourselves with the experience of doing something and realizing that that thing is not going to hurt us as in our ego, that people are not necessarily thinking about us, and all of that, it kind of reprograms, it reparents. Only we can do that. Only we can give ourselves those opportunities. And maybe you would call that continuous learning and growth. I just call it a great big cosmic experiment joke type thing, really, because it does feel more and more like that. So if it feels to you like it's just, there's so much to do to be okay, that you've got to keep learning and you've got to keep growing and you've got to keep working it, then please do. You're too busy for all that. I know you are. So don't wait. Just reach out and have that first conversation. There is nothing on it. I am going to tell you about how to work with me more long term. Of course I am. That's what I'm doing here. Helping, but I want to help people more than just one session. But there is nothing on that. If you say no to me, I will not go around the corner and cry. So please do book that conversation. There'll be a link around here somewhere to do that. And let's talk, let's explore this, and let's see what you can see that's different to what you're seeing now. And have a nicer experience of life. Much love. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.